All right, Shawn from Shield Wall Gaming here. So, super excited. Some Wizard reveals coming out. It is March 1st right now, but it's March 2nd in New Zealand. So March 2nd is when the spoilers were coming out. So we're getting them a little early, which is kind of nice. Just the site is unlocking all of these different things. Really cool stuff. Biggest question that's been out there for the Wizard, which the Wizard is what they're revealing and spoiling right now, is what is Arcane Damage? As we saw Voltic Bolt, which is 5 Arcane Damage, just a Wizard action. Well, what do you do with that? Can you defend it like you can defend normally? How does this whole Arcane Damage thing work? The answer is no. You cannot defend it as you defend it normally. You're saying, what? Well, how do I do that then? Well, I've got a Guardian that's got all these defense things. Like, how can I work? Arcane Damage cannot be defended by the little gray shield in the bottom part. It can only be staved off by Arcane Barriers. So let's take a look and see what we got. So first, as we look at this, you can see there's a whole list of spoilers and the dates that they're coming out. So this is what we're getting right now. We can see the hero page live. The 3rd. So this is all 1 day behind in the United States. So here is the new hero. It is Kano Drakai of Aether. So it gives his story here. You can learn more about him. A lot of lore stuff. It's pretty cool. So some good stuff there. The Wizard, he looks cool for sure. Great artwork as always on all of these cards. Here's where the big reveal is the Master of Arcane and how casters in Wrath and how they deal their damage. They do so with Arcane Damage. And so something I want to show you here is if you look at the comparison between Melee and Wizard, attack action cards, Melee, that's all they have. They do melee damage and they do it on the combat chain. Arcane Damage and casters do not use the combat chain to deal arcane damage. Now they still can combat with generic attacks. They can still fill their deck with generic things just like any other hero can. But the Wizard cards themselves, their arcane damage is done through Wizard actions. And we saw that before when we looked at Voltic Bolt. We spoiled this or looked at it in another video shortly after it was spoiled. They deal 5 arcane damage to a target hero in this card particularly, and it's a Wizard action. That's it. It's not a Wizard action. It's not an attack action. So then the question becomes, well, let's just finish this. So non-attack action cards, a lot of those in Melee that impact combat. There's a lot of the non-attack action cards for the Wizards. There are no attack reaction cards for the Wizard, just like there are no attack action cards. There's no reactions from the Wizards. Again, there could be generic cards for the Wizard. And then defense reactions. There are some defense reactions for the Wizard. The defense reactions we see from the Melee heroes seem to be pretty strong. But there are some for the Wizard, but they're very weak. They just kind of are there. And then, of course, they have access to a movable, and they have access to Sink Below and the cards that, again, are generic. So, again, when you're building a deck, they have access to those things, but the Wizard cards themselves are not that way. So, 2 big questions here on this. And the first one I'm going to answer is, well, if the Wizard can just sit back and cast actions, how is that fair? And there's one thing I think that's interesting here is if we scroll down and we look at the Wizard, we see his card, we see his ability. We'll talk about his ability here in a second, but notice this. He's only got 30 health. He has 10 less health from his experienced version in a constructed deck. And for sealed and limited, he's only got 15 health. So he's starting off weaker. He doesn't defend as well, and he could be very weak against physical attacks. He is very weak against physical attacks. So he's trying to stay away from you more and cast some things in his hand or cast some things out. So here's the next question then. How do you defend? How do you defend arcane damage? If I can't defend it with any of my defense cards or my defense reaction cards that resolve to become a defense card, how do I defend this stuff? Well, there's really only one way that we're spoiling. I'm sure there are going to be other ways to gain a new keyword called Arcane Barrier, and that's what these cards are. All of these have the same effect on them, but let's just look at Null Rune Hood. But these are the Null Rune equipment items that they've spoiled. And so you get the skill Arcane Barrier, If your hero would be dealt arcane damage, you may pay 1. If you do, prevent 1 arcane damage that source would deal. Now, here's what's interesting about this. It doesn't get destroyed like other equipment would, or it's not something you have to destroy. So when you get a couple of these into your equipment, they're going to sit there. And so you can keep using them over and over again as long as you're spending resources. Now that's the trick, right? Is spending the resources to be able to utilize them and determine what arcane damage is going to come through and what damage won't. But when they're choosing to use those as attacks, essentially what that means is, unless we see other cards revealed that provide Arcane Barrier or something like it, I can imagine there might be some powerful generic cards maybe that have Arcane Barrier 2 or something along those lines. Until we see that, it's going to probably be critical that in draft and in sealed, certainly in constructed, that these become part of your equipment and part of what you're trying to kind of put together. For constructed, you're going to have some of these in your sideboard if you're facing a wizard, because you've got to be able to stave off some of that damage. But if you can hit him hard enough and quick enough, that's going to be kind of this race, and that's going to be part of that push and pull, which makes this really, really exciting. So let's quickly look at his ability, and his ability is a little similar to the Ninja. The Ninja, you go in and find a combo and put it and banish it, and you're able to play it. This one is you pay 3 abilities. Look at the top card of your deck. If it's a non-attack action card, which all of the wizard cards are that, they don't have attack action cards, but you could still, again, put those in your deck. If it is a non-attack action card that you flip over, you banish it, and you can play it this turn as if it were an instant, which actually adds a little bit more power even, because if you think about having arcane damage, it almost adds like the lightning bolt thing here. It almost works as you banish it, it sits there on your opponent's turn. Oh no, I guess it would be on your turn. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was going to say, that would be amazing. No, but this is an instant. Yeah, so you could still play it. So no, I was right. So you can activate this ability on your opponent's turn because it's the ability's an instant. Look at the top card, banish it if it's a non-attack action card, and then at the end of your opponent's turn, again, you could cast it and you could do whatever you want with it. So that's kind of interesting. It adds a little bit more of that instant ability to be able to inflict damage in situations where maybe you couldn't otherwise. Yeah, so pretty interesting, pretty cool. Excited about this. This is gonna really. It's really hard to tell kind of where it's at, I guess, altogether, and how this all plays out until we see a lot more of the cards. But the idea of how they're going to be releasing some of these spoilers is pretty cool and pretty fun. So just thought I'd share that with you. That Arcane Damage is something that when we had our welcome event on Friday, we kind of talked about how do you defend Arcane Damage? How does that work? Well, now we have an answer, and there's a lot more detail on there, and there's more tips around building decks a little bit in there. There's some different information there, so it's pretty cool. As we get closer to Road to Nationals as well, that season starts March 28th, I'm going to do a separate video on that. Could be pretty cool to see how this whole thing plays out. So thanks for watching Shield Wall. Thanks for giving us a chance. Let me know in the comments below what you think. What do you think about the Wizard? What do you think so far? I mean, the ability to do damage that's very hard to block is very appealing, right? But understanding the trade-offs are you're weaker and you don't defend as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. All right. Leave the comments below. Like the video if you can. Subscribe if you can, please. The more subscribers we get, the more we get out there, and the more that some of these companies that we're trying to work with take us serious. And we appreciate it. Thanks so much.